So Martha, would you like to share a little bit about our first guest?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. Arnold Andersen has worked for about 20 years in major Danish firms as an architect and project manager before he joined the VELUX group. And there he's been the leader of several initiatives and daylight strategies. He initiated the VELUX Award for Students of Architecture, and he initiated this symposium.
We have him to thank.
Absolutely, among many others. Yeah. We also are pleased to know that Arnold Andersen, he was the one who started the Daylight Award, and this is presented by VELUX Foundations. So without further ado, Arnold Andersen, please come to the stage. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Martha. Daylight in architecture is an ever-relevant topic, and architects have always been considering architects in their works. But still, architecture and daylight is quite a difficult discipline to master. Where should one start with finding the perfect reference for a daylit or perfectly daylit building? I really like to focus on the Larkin building, one of the really greatest projects made by Frank Lloyd Wright in New York. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it because it's actually not there anymore. But it's really an amazing project that has been an inspiration for architects in Europe and in North America for many years. The Larkin building was the headquarters of a company that was selling soap. It was one of the first offline companies selling soap to customers all over the US, sending it by horse carriages, etc. So really a very dynamic company in that time. They specifically asked Frank Lloyd Wright to make their building, which is very, very unique because, as you can see on this picture, it's really generously daylit from the skylights from the top. And there were so many other inventions in this building. It had a unique ventilation system using the concrete, the masonry walls to its best potential, leading the air in and out of the building through slits in the facade. But also a lot of other inventions were found in this building. What was very special about it was that the management was sitting in the bottom, so everyone could see how they were working in the building. And then the employees were sitting in the galleries. And on the top of this building, there was a canteen and a roof terrace for the employees. So they were really thinking about optimizing the conditions for the employees in the building, but also ensuring that they had a good contact to the outdoor environment. One should believe that we are more clever today. We have learned a lot about how to build buildings. When I mean more clever, because this building was actually demolished in 1950 because they thought that the period was over for the use of the building. So it was demolished and it was replaced by a parking lot of all things. So that's why we cannot visit this fantastic reference today. But and we should be more clever today. But are we that? The reason why this vanished, the reason why we didn't build these kind of buildings for so many years was the invention of the fluorescent light, the light systems that allowed buildings to be very, very deep, and also to make cubicles in the buildings so that you didn't have to have the natural light for your work purposes. Today, you can even find strange buildings that are being built without windows. And many of you may have heard about this quite recent project called the Munger Hall project that is building a big dormitory at a university with windowless dormitories and with pseudo-electronic windows. And that's even for a university that calls itself for VELUX, Let There Be Light. But let's continue with the iconic buildings that are luckily still there. Corbusier's Notre-Dame du Haut in Longchamp. Corbusier is really known as the master of daylight in architecture. And to quote him, "I use daylight abundantly, as you may have suspected. Light is for me the fundamental basis for architecture." This is really a key message as I see it. Back in 2001, we started in VELUX to look out at the schools of architecture, to look at what is actually the conditions for daylight teaching. How many courses are they doing at the schools in lighting? And what is the best practice? So we started to have a dialogue with various schools. And we also had a contact to the European Association for Architectural Education, where we were supporting a research project for writing in architecture. So we asked them, how do you teach architects and architecture students today in lighting and daylighting specifically? And what we could see was that a lot of things were happening in the Nordic countries, and specifically at the Royal Academy in Copenhagen. But when we look at around, it was not integrated very much in the other schools. So we started out with making a compilation of what is available right now online and in various sources for students to look into and to be inspired from. And together with Ebbe Christensen from the Royal Academy, we made a traveling light lab. Because the Royal Academy has really nice facilities with a light laboratory with an artificial sky and a moving sun. So they can really make perfect light conditions for testing models. And they also have a big one-to-one scale house or room where they can modulate the openings of the room and to see the effects of light. So together with Ebbe Christensen, we developed this portable daylight lab, and we sent it out to schools around in Europe for them to integrate it and for them to test the light conditions with various openings under the sky outdoor. What we also did at that time was to initiate a student competition because we felt that we needed to do something. And that was why we started the International VELUX Award for Students of Architecture that has now been running since 2004. We have been in contact with 6,000 students and their projects over the years in 800 schools and in 130 countries. So we have really been around in the countries. And what we ask the students in this competition is really to think out of the box, to consider what is daylight all about and how can we integrate it in our projects. How can we work with scale models? How can we look at materiality? How can we look at the impact of various opening and reflective surfaces, etc., in these buildings? And the advantage for the students is that they are open-minded and they can really do the experimentation together with their teachers. And over the years, we have really experienced some really exciting projects. I'll just show a few of them here. The very first winner in 2004, a project from Norway, making and working with a museum for the very first video artist from Korea, but really working with modeling and working with really considerate observations on how can the light be used to show this specific artist and his work. In 2006, we had Louise Grønlund from the Royal Academy in Copenhagen, who did a fantastic exercise on looking into a museum for photography. What is really nice to see is that Louise was a winner back in 2006. She made a PhD in daylighting, and today is teaching at the School of Architecture in Copenhagen. We also had a very exciting project in 2008 from US, from Cornell. Really a project that looked into how is it to commute every day to work with the subway, and how can we make this experience more exciting for people with daylight. We had a really exciting project back in 2016 from Korea, looking at how do you get light into basement apartments in very narrow streets. How can you push this window opening towards the interior and take it out again? So it's actually driving the light into the room during daytime and actually illuminating the street during nighttime. Really an exciting project. The same year, a really exciting project that looked into how can we make daylight tangible for blind people. Can we make a braille surface so that students or young people at the schools for blind really can experience what they are missing with their eyes, so they can really, through these surfaces, experience light and shadow. And leading back to the winner of this past year, Henrik Logau, who will present a project and his project in a moment, so I will not get into this. And another very interesting global winning project from a team from Poland looking into night pollution. Really exciting. So all these kinds of experimentations, the use of scale models, the search for new materials, etc., the work in the lab, etc., is really fantastic. We revisited all the winners when we had a 10 years anniversary, and it was really exciting to see how the students had developed and also how the jury members had seen this over the years. All this was recorded in our Daylight and Architecture magazine, a magazine that we made for architects because we wanted to start a discussion with the architects related to daylight and architecture. And what we wanted was not to come with a lot of answers, but to ask a lot of questions. And to ask the architects, how do you see your own role as architects for this world, for sustainability and for a better development? Also here we looked into the magic of the light, of the night. We really need the night sky, and we need the contact to the stars and the moon, which we are really missing today with the light pollution. And of course, looking into the health aspects of light, because light is actually the nature's prescription for health and productivity. All this constitutes a legacy that we really want to use and use also in the education today. So what we are doing now is we are making all this material available on our website, daylightandarchitecture.com. Of course, we are including our students of architecture and all our winners, but we are also initiating a new initiative, Daylight Talks, because we believe that it's very important for the students, but also for professional architects to further develop and hear about colleagues who are presenting their works. And the architects are specifically given the task, how do you conceive your projects with Daylight? How do you see boundary conditions? Are there any restrictions or are there any problems in the way as regard to legislation or economy, etc.? So a really nice look into the works of architecture officers. For us, is it also an invitation to schools of architecture to have a very close collaboration with them? So we are doing these talks in close collaboration with a huge number of universities. All the talks are recorded. It's a 45 minutes talk with 30 minutes for Q&As. And what we can see for the first 4 talks is that the interest is really big. And there's a lot of questions raised in connection with these lectures. So this is an invitation to everyone. We are inviting students of architecture. We are inviting their teachers. We are inviting the professional architects to join our community, that has a passion for Daylight in architecture. And we are inviting, once again, the students and their teachers to participate in the International VELUX Award 2022. Thank you.